plays on you. It evokes in you certain feelings, certain sentiments, which are not intellectual, which are not calculations, which are emotive. I'm reminded of the relation between the book and the reader. What Stendhal, the great French writer, said, that of the bow and the casing in a violin. The casing is the human soul, the reader's soul, and the bow is the book. It plays on the casing and it creates notes. All the notes are latent in us, they are sleeping in us. It is this that evokes, that makes it conscious, makes us conscious of those notes. And that is where the different situation that it creates and through which one goes, the reader goes, it makes you less judgmental and more accommodative. It moves from the moral certitude to moral ambiguity. You don't just condemn a person outrightly that, look, so-and-so is right, so-and-so is wrong. Because maybe in a situation where that person is, you could also be like that. But you are not aware of it. This growth of a person, the individuals, is possible only if you go through that literature, the various genres of it, through the philosophy. And that is what makes a person a wholesome, and which is the need of the hour. We are at an age where we need books like what Dr. James Matthew has produced. I congratulate him. I compliment him for his wonderful work, amazing work. And I would be definitely a strong proponent of it, that this book is worth keeping on not only in yourself, but also on the bedside. That when you go to the bed, take the book, turn a leaf, read it, think over it. It is so edifying, it can be so sublimating that one ends up a better human being. In the introduction, this Adur Gopalakrishnan says this is a book, aperitivo for the beginner, that appetizer for the beginner, and digestivo, that is digestive for the sated. Very aptly said. But irrespective of whether one is a beginner or well-sated or well-read, this book deserves to be in the travel bag of every person who wishes to grow and wishes to be a better human being. Thank you, Dr. James Matthew. Thank you very much for this book. All the best to all. Thank you, James.
Thank you, Honorable Governor, for that. It's my great pleasure to introduce to you a remarkable individual who's not only made significant contributions to the field of medicine, but has also embarked on a literary journey that has captivated readers worldwide. Please join me in welcoming Dr. James Matthew, a distinguished cardiologist and the author of Book of Books.
Honorable Governor of Tamil Nadu, Thiru Ravindra Narayan Ravi, Dr. P.M. Nair, IPS, Honorable Justice Prabha Sridevan, pardon me, and the chair, Mr. K. Kunyikrishnan, my friend and author, Thiru Sri Kumar Verma, Srimati Sumita Detta, Srimati Lakshmi Nambiar, distinguished guests, my friends, my family, little children, ladies and gentlemen, Vanakkam. And happy Chennai Dinam, Chennai Day. I am profoundly honored and deeply humbled by your attendance on this occasion and by the sentiments you have expressed with respect to Book of Books. On behalf of my co-author, Ken Bignell, and myself, I wholeheartedly thank you all. This book, for the most part at least, was written at night. Thank you for helping it to see the day of the light. The light of the day. And for throwing some bright light on it, particularly from my countrymen in India. Most men who toil would one day like to take the fruit of their labor to the market. Writers in general are no exception in this respect, but the market to which the writers take their product to is different, and so is the scale by which their reward is measured. Thank you for helping to make Book of Books matter in the market for which it is intended, the minds of the reading public. My respect are due foremost to those honest men and women who left behind a great legacy of their recorded noble thoughts for generations and nations to inherit. My task in writing the book was merely to gather some pearls from the stream of time, a stream that meanders through centuries and stretches across continents, to weave a necklace of pearls, if you will, and present it to the world. Thank you for kindly looking at it and warmly receiving it. And now my task that respected chair has assigned me to, namely to tell the story behind the Book of Books, the making of Book of Books. Growing up in India, I have heard the names of the 19th century intellectuals of America, Henry David Thoreau, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Abraham Lincoln. Even as I was familiar with the household names in India of the 20th century, Mahatma Gandhi, Rabindranath Tagore, but it was not until about 1984 when I first laid my eyes on a copy of Henry David Thoreau's single most famous book, Walden. Thoreau introduced me to a few other great American figures, especially the Transcendentalists. Reading the writings of the Transcendentalists impressed upon me how profoundly they were influenced by ancient Indian literature and scriptures. Then there was a period in the late 19th and the early 20th centuries when mutual exchange of ideas and ideals occurred more generously and freely between the East and the West by the travels and labors of intellectuals from the East and the West and in between. This led to better understanding and mutual respect among peoples and nations. While the theme of the East-West exchange of literature and philosophy evolved, so did my interest in seeing my favorite authors' writings in their original formats. So I became an angler at that point, and I started fishing for rare books, manuscripts, association copies, and historical artifacts, both from the East and the West. Looking back, the beginning of my collecting can be traced to a copy of the Holy Bible that my little daughter Shanti inscribed and presented to me, perhaps on a birthday, I don't remember for sure. She wrote in her cursive letters in green ink, simply, from Shanti to James Matthew. And this was well over 25 years ago. Little did I foresee that this small gift from the small hands of my daughter would be the seed of a collection of rare books, manuscripts, and historical artifacts which will one day be presented to the world in the form of a book. As my collection grew, I realized that the pearls I caught were not without their links. the invisible strands that bind all inquisitive men and elevate mankind. I viewed it as a sort of museum, and I decided to name it after my father, T.G. Mathai. As the scope of the museum grew around this theme of East-West exchange of philosophy and literature, so did my desire to share it with the world. Book of Books is my attempt at that. I would like to highlight a few names without which perhaps this book in general, and particularly the India edition, and certainly not this grand ceremony of release in Chennai, would have happened. Right from the beginning of the concept and the first draft, my good friend Sri Adur Gopalakrishnan was my supporter and my encourager. So I humbly remember his name here. This particular India edition and this grand release by none other than Honorable Governor of the state of Tamil Nadu would not have happened without the support and encouragement of a gentleman whose name I am proud to pronounce. It is Sri K. Kunyikrishnan. Not only him, but many members of his family. In short of time, I'm not going to mention all of them, but the whole family supported me, and they put this whole thing together. I showed up, rather on the verge of the meeting when it began. I'm also thankful to my UK publisher, Libri Publishing, for bringing out a UK edition, as well as Sumita Dutta of Adisakrit for bringing out this beautiful India edition to make it more affordable and accessible to book lovers and readers in India. The highlights of this collection and the contents of these books are the intellectuals of the 19th century America, the writings of ancient India which influenced them, the later luminaries who rekindled East-West conversation, and modern India's greatest gifts to the world. So, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, my countrymen, those of you who gather these rare, precious gems, consider not them your property, but rather consider yourself as temporary custodians of ways which are worth more than their price, and find ways to pass them on to the generations and nations. God bless you all, and God bless India.
Thank you, Dr. James Matthew. I request Sri K. Kunyikrishnan to give the vote of thanks.
Honorable guests on the dais, distinguished invitees, guests, media, I am emotionally filled when I propose a vote of thanks, because when James said that we have to have a release function, and since the book is published in Chennai, I said it's the best place where literature, culture find its best avenues. And who else should I contact first? None other than our dear family friend, the Honorable Governor of Tamil Nadu, Mr. R.N. Ravi. I called him after years because we had, as he said, lost contact, though both of us had our telephone numbers. I had tried to contact him when he got this first assignment after his interlocutor job, but then the number was not going. Since there is another gentleman. All these people are in this service of intelligence. Probably I thought the number must have changed. It was such a great pleasure to connect with him and his family after several years. Thank you, Mr. Ravi. I am deeply honored and most grateful for blessing us with your gracious presence, and also Mrs. Lakshmi on this occasion. Madhu Nair, PM Nair, is a very, very, very dear friend of ours, and it would be improper if I say a few words. He was of such great help to me when I had some crisis in my career. Thank you, Madhu, for being present and for accepting the copy of the book. Justice Prabha, I called her, I didn't know her. Then a friend of mine suggested that she is one of the best to be present on the occasion, and she gave me the phone number. I called her and she was very gracious to pick up the phone, and even without any formal introduction, I said, this is the task that I call upon you to felicitate Dr. James Matthews' book. Thank you, madam. It was such a nice speech, and you quoted excerpts extensively from the book. Thank you. Sri Kumar Varma was not known to me till today. When today I discovered that he is the son of a great person of whom I had great admiration while I was working in Chennai, Doordarshan, and that is Mr. Dr. K.K. Varma, who was a scholar par excellence. Thank you, Sri Kumar Varma, for being present with us. Mrs. Varma, for gracing us. Then I should thank James Matthew, the author of Book of Books, who made it possible for us to have this function. Thank you for taking a holiday from your busy career, coming down to India, spending a couple of weeks. Last time he came, he donated the first edition copies of Tagore's Gitanjali to the Kerala University Library, and he was there just for 3 days. He came for the donation, went back. But now, this time, he spent quite some time. Thank you very much, James, for making this function. Now, I have to congratulate and thank Sumita Datta for publishing the book and also for organizing this function. And in organizing this function, my old colleague in Doordarshan, Ganesan, rendered untold support and help. Thank you, Ganesan. I don't know that. Yes, he is. Yeah. I find a lot of familiar faces in the crowd. If I go on listing them, it will be too long. I have Thiruvengadam here, Srinivasa Raghavan. Then I am also delighted to see Mr. Rudra Gangadharan and also Neela Gangadharan, with whom I had very pleasant associations. Mrs. Neela Gangadharan was also incidentally the Chief Secretary of Kerala, though we didn't have much of contact. I didn't have anything to do with Chief Secretary. But she is still a very, very, very dear friend. Thank you very much. Then the colleagues from Doordarshan like Perumal, who is a great author himself. Then I have Preeta, Rama Devi. They are all sitting here. Thank you very much for accepting my invitation. I have 7th Channel Narayanan somewhere there. Yeah, he's here in the front row. Thank you for making it present. And the great patron of arts, Mr. Nalli Kupuswamy Chettiar. Thank you very much. Then I should thank, I forgot to mention Mr. Doreraj, who is also somewhere in the crowd. There are quite a few others. You know, it was so nice meeting you after years. I thank the friends in the media who provided extensive coverage. I thank Lakshmi, my daughter-in-law, who did a wonderful comparing of the show.